Well, here we are on our next video, and here is where we're going to take the build process next. We're putting the skin on. Now it's just one part of this video. Well, there are a few little bits here and here, but essentially one part to this next step of the build, but it's quite a large part. It's there's a lot going on, and there's a lot that we've got to do to it, and the process of putting it in place is quite lengthy as well. So I thought we would dedicate a whole video to that process. Obviously, as you can see, there's more to do. We've got stuff up here going on, stuff over here. There are bits and pieces down here too, so there's plenty else that needs to be done. But I thought if we just concentrate on putting the skin on this video, then we'll be able to really get into the detail of it, and hopefully you can the results that you can get from that will result in something that looks like this or even better. So let's put this to one side for now, bring on where we're actually at, which is our pretty naked fuselage at the moment, bar our little piece at the back here, and then bring on our part with the fuselage. So this is the fuselage bit. I've actually looked on the parts for the Secret Santa, and this is Z2 on Secret Santa, and that is Z1, so I've got them around the wrong way. Fortunately, this hasn't gone into production yet. There are a few little adjustments that I do need to make actually, and one of those is obviously to switch the part numbers around. So they are, for you guys who are building the Secret Santa, they are the right way round. So that is the Z1 and that is the Z2. I'm hoping that's what I looked at some of the spare parts that we produced and all the runovers on production, and that's what was indicated. So hopefully I'm right there. Right, let us extract this part. I'm going to flip the sheet over so I can see where all the tabs are. Sat here all on my own in the factory on Christmas Eve making this video, and with just somebody wanting to deliver. There's nobody else here at all but myself, so sorry for the interruption. Right, where were we? Let's extract our skin for the Aviatik Berg D.1. As you can see, there is quite a lot to this part. So there we go. I haven't been particularly successful in getting that out cleanly. Those tabs are still showing, so I'm just going to very gently remove, bring them back to where they should be. Go. You'll notice there's an interesting little kink at the back of the fuselage here, where the horizontal stabilizer lives, and that's because on the actual aircraft itself, the full-scale Aviatik Berg D1, the tail actually has a airfoil to it, and on all of the images that I saw, the technical drawings, all of the photographs, etc., that I used to research the aircraft, I noticed that the tail had an airfoil to it, very distinct actually. So I thought, well, what the hell, let's try and integrate that using our little method of just adding a score to it and bending it slightly. And so I did that. I thought, well, if it doesn't work in flight, it causes problems, then we can always remove it. but in fact it worked, so we retained it. So that little sort of kink in the back there is where the horizontal stabilizer sits, and obviously it creates that undercambered airfoil that is apparent on the Aviatik Berg D.1. So there we go. Right, I digress. Now you've got your scoring and beveling guide, and that gets laid on there. But before that, what I like to do, obviously it's very difficult to bevel this when it's on here. This is purely really for the scoring, but it actually shows you where you need to bevel in these little grey areas here. And on most of these, it's a sort of around about a 45-degree bevel. And I use the lighter side of the sanding stick, which is, it's got two grits to it. And I use the lighter grit, and then I'll literally go and sand a 45 into all of the areas indicated on here. Before I do that, actually, and what's going to make doing the sanding easier is I'm going to just put the scores in there and there. Now, normally I would tape this down, and I will do shortly when we come to do the scores at the top here in the nose area. But for here, I'm just going to get my rather far too long straight edge. Just angle this slightly, and it's fairly obvious where the score goes. It's from that corner there to that corner there. So just lay the straight edge there, and then using the back edge of my knife and using it really shallow as well, so it doesn't dig in, just guide it through that that path. And why I'm doing this, as I said, it's going to make the sanding of the bevel easier, and that's because I can actually bend it this way to expose these edges here, so I can sand down there. Now, the technique that I won't subject you to a full half hour, but it won't take half an hour, it'll take a few minutes, but I won't subject you to all of the sanding. But what I tend to do is I use my fingers to support the edge that I'm sanding, and then I will then use the sanding stick to gently put that 45 into the area, and then move my fingers along to support the material. And it's particularly important around here that you move slowly and deliberately so that you don't cause it to bend or break or snap while you're putting that bevel in. And also watch your fingers against these parts as well as you're doing it. That's why we can bend this away like so. There's no real trickery here. All of these are 45, apart from at the back here where you can do a shallower bevel. This is where it'll come up against the rear of the internal keel, so it'll sit either side there. I might even give this a bit of a pinch to reduce its size, take it down to about 1.5 mil, like so, when we come to fit this. So that's where it'll sit. So the shallower bevel is because it obviously goes in at a shallower angle when it comes to rest on the keel. So so to do that, once again, supported, and then just gently sand away until you've got the bevel that you desire. And obviously, if you can take it down so it comes to a point there and you haven't got any of the white edge showing, when it comes to sticking it together, you won't have any of the white edge showing. So there we go. So I'll carry on and put a bevel on all of the areas that's suggested on our scoring and beveling guide, and then I'll come back and we'll do the other scores on the fuselage part. So here we go. I have now sanded. If I bring that a little bit closer, hopefully you'll be able to see that the edges have been beveled somewhat, and I've also had a little bit of a go down there too, so that it's easier for the part to fold. So we've got our bevels at the chin as well, and all down the fuselage. It only took a few minutes to do, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this onto the scoring and beveling guide. I'm actually going to use some low tack masking tape and just hold the nose in place. Like so, that'll do. And then, using my far too long straight edge, just score each side one at a time, because they're not straight, they're slightly angled. So just doing each one in turn. Careful when you get to the end that you don't put the knife through the foam. It's quite easy to do that. And I just release the pressure just as I get to the end there. And keep it nice and shallow. I think that's the last one. Yep. And then just do the other side. Go. Right, so I can now take this off. Easier said than done. And then before we fit this, what I will do is just bend those scores so that they start forming in the direction that we need them to form when we come to install. So there we go, so it creates a nice curve for us. Right, that'll do. So let's do a bit of dry fitting. Firstly, we need to get the tail skid through the hole. It won't actually go if you just plonk it on like so. It needs to be sort of threaded through like so. There we go. And actually, probably worth, before doing that, just pressing the little domed area at the back there, just pressing that together a bit, just to make it easier for the skin to settle in the right place. So obviously that skin needs to sit along the bottom of the keel like so, and there is a little tab that pokes through the hole that's in the base there, so that you can get it positioned correctly. So that should sit neatly like so, and then obviously these sides come up, and Obviously these two surfaces attach together. This top part here attaches to the piece that we've already installed, and the rest of the part sits against the side of the airframe there in various places. So we're going to actually install this in stages so that it makes it easier for us. And the first stage is obviously to pop this on like we have there and have it sit on and glue to the base of the airframe. So what we'll do is add a little bit of glue to all of those areas it's going to come in contact with. Let me just open up the nozzle and then just add the glue to the points of contact. There we go. And then, as we did with our dry fit, slot the tail skid through like so, and then pop the skin on. Now you should be able to just put a sort of a thumb and finger on either side of the formers and just feel that the base there is sitting centrally, and obviously it should come to the point at the back of the aircraft there at the aft end. So what we'll do is we'll let that dry and sit in position before we move on to the next stage, and so it won't shift around, it'll be centrally positioned, so it'll give us a good base for the rest of the skin installation. Okay, the glue is now dry, so the next step is to bring these sides up so that they sit against the fuselage. But there's a little bit of work that we have to do because we've got a number of seams that we're creating here and here, here and here, and we want to make those neat as possible. Of course, we've put the bevel on there to reduce the amount of exposure of the white material of the foam, and we've got a lot of glue to deal with putting these sides up and together. So what I'm going to suggest is that obviously we can do some dry fitting so you know exactly where these are going, but then what we'll do, because this is a nice box structure and now it's quite solid, we'll do each side, certainly from the rear, from the cockpit to the rear, we'll do them separately, one after the other, and then when we come up to this part here, we can slowly gather our part so that it comes to meet at the front here, as you can see just there. It should meet. It should be millimetre perfect. And what I've just noticed is that I've still got tiny little tabs from cutting the part off, so let's just get rid of those so we give ourselves a chance for those to marry up at the front. So let's start applying some glue, and I'm initially going to put the glue onto the edge of the formers here, like so, way down, and then I'm going to put a bead all the way down the edge here on the bit that we've already put on, basically the turtle deck, and also some down the opposite side, just there, like so, and not forgetting the bit at the end there on the keel where the end here comes to rest. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the parts up so that I can transfer some of that glue onto the opposing edge on both sides, like so. And then I'm going to let that fall apart. Now, you might get a little bit of stringing. Certainly if you're using Yoo-Hoo Pour over and above the foam to foam, you'll get a lot of stringing, but with the foam to foam you don't get so much. And I'm just going to let that dry off, and then we'll bring it back together again. Whilst that's happening, I'm also going to add a little bit of glue. Not a huge amount, just a few dabs on the former there and this area here, and also up the side of the receiver platform and that little structure that we have below it as well, and just on the edge of the first of the stack of formers that we've got at the nose. So, right, we'll give that a few minutes just for that to dry off, and then what we will have is that the glue will have dried sufficiently to be almost a contact adhesive. So when we bring it together, we won't have much of an opportunity to move it around, but because we've got it in this situation now, there shouldn't be any need to move it around as long as we fold it up relatively accurately. There will be a little bit of wiggle room, I'm sure, and then I'll show you the process of finishing off the edges that we'll create, the seams that we create. Right, let's bring this bit together. So we're literally just going to fold it up like so, letting the tack on the former take the strain. As you can see, it's just staying there now, and then we can start to position the part so that we can start bringing these seams together. So initially I'm just using finger pressure to bring the two seams in contact with each other and hopefully get that contact adhesive working. So it looks like I haven't got too much adhesive down here, so I'm going to actually just see if I can add some while this part's in situ. I don't want to go tearing it all apart. So see if I can lift it up slightly, just hold it there. Just add a little bit of glue in there to help. There we go. And then that'll probably have to go through a bit of a drying process as well. I could actually put a little bit of tape on there if I wanted to. I can feel a bit of the glue on my fingers, so we might need to tidy that area up in a little while, but apart from that, everything seems to be coming together okay. Now, finger pressure is good, and in the past what I've suggested is using the back of the fingernail to start smoothing and moving the foam around so that the little white part that you have becomes narrower and narrower. But more recently we've found these little tools which are used in cake decoration, in sculpting, all sorts of things like that. They're readily available, little sort of ball tools, quite a heavy steel ball, and you can get them in all different sizes. Obviously we've got two here, two different sizes, and actually you just use the heavier one just to push on either side there, just to bring the parts together. So, and then they're also very good at picking up the excess glue that that comes out as well, especially if they're clean rather than greasy. They tend to help bead it and bring it off the structure. So, and then just sort of using my thumb as one side of the pressure and the ball tool to add to the other side, and then we can switch. When we come down here we can switch to the smaller tool, just because it can get into that area a lot easier. And then I can feel it beading up the glue as well as I go. There's a little bit of resistance. There we go. And then just to continue that along the top too. The eagle-eyed ones of you will note that I need to do a little bit of adjustment on the graphics on this kit. This is the first build of this kit, so I'm not only using it to demonstrate to you how to build the kit, but also doing a bit of a test fit at the same time. So if you're watching this a little further down the line, and you're building this particular kit, then hopefully yours will line up a lot better. Your graphics will line up a lot better than mine do here. So as you can see, you can work away at these seams, and the more work you do to a certain extent, the better they become. And it's really what you're doing is you're moving that sort of weakened foam that you've created on the edge by beveling. You're sort of just pushing it together, manipulating it so that you just get a nice neat edge without too much of that white foam showing through, if any. I've got a little bit of glue on the surface there. I can actually just use the ball to bead up the glue if I want. Obviously I could use a little bit of lighter fluid to remove it as well. We might go over this at the end of the day just to make sure that we've got rid of any surface glue that's made it on there from sticky fingers or just spreading out from the seam because of too much applied. So there we go. And you can come back and work on that as much as you want. You can even do it when you've fully built the kit. But yeah, so that's what we've done there. So now moving forward, what we want to do when we bring this in contact with the rest of the fuselage is just to probably the best indicator is firstly the part here, this little sort of side cheek that we created internally on the fuselage skeleton, the airframe. We want to make sure that marries up pretty much with the outer skin there, and then when you bring the skin down here, obviously we're going to have some more coming down the chin here and marrying up to the side of the fuselage that we're applying at the moment. So we want that little beveled edge just sticking up slightly from the foam that's going to be supporting that chin area. So, like so. Okay, and you'll notice you have a little protrusion here up above the top level of the fuselage as we've applied it at the moment. So we'll then repeat that process on this side, and then we'll come and close up the front so that we sort of finish off the nose area there. So I'll get on and do exactly the same on this side as I've done on that side, and we'll come and I'll show you how to do that. So that's proved to be quite successful. Got both sides done now, and if you look here, and I bring those two parts together, bang! We meet in the middle, which is fantastic. So a little bit of skewifery around the tail here, but only a couple of millimeters, and I can make sure I'm wary of that when I'm installing the tail. Yeah, apart from that, all the seams are looking pretty good. I might give them another going over a bit later, do the old fingernail trick. For now, we can actually bring these two parts together. As you can see, they sit so that they sit actually up against the nose block that we've put in there, but just on the edges. So we haven't had to carve these blocks, thankfully, and it should sit neatly there. Now, what we can do is obviously put a little bit of glue around the areas that it's going to come in contact with, and I can actually sort of fold it back slightly and put some glue on each of those edges there, but I'm not going to put any at the front here. I want that to be a little bit more floating, and the reason for that is that when we put the chin on, that's quite rounded at the front, so I want to keep that roundedness to the structure when we bring it together. What I'm actually going to do, well, that's we'll just pop it together like that while it's wet, so we get some glue onto the other surface. I'm going to cut out a little bit of 1mm material. Let's just take it from down here, just a little bit like that, and yeah, that looks good. What I'm going to do is just put a bit of material underneath, so that when we bring them together, it acts as a little bit of a sort of an extra bridge to the join. So I'll just put some glue on that. Just place that on the one side for now. You said I should have used tweezers, shouldn't I? Instead of my big fat fingers, let's get the tweezers. So pop that there. There we go. As you can see, I've left a bit of a step there. That's obviously where we've got our bevel, and I don't want this little bit that I've just cut out interfering with that bevel when we come to put the chin on. So there we go. And what I'll do is just add a little bit of glue onto the other side that will come in contact with that little part that we just cut out. There we go. And well, I could let that dry off like that and we'll use it as a contact adhesive, or I'm going to just use a little bit of my low tack masking tape. We'll bring everything together and hold it in place with the tape itself. So just pop the tape on. There we go. And that can just hold it while it goes off. There we go. Right, there is one other task that we need to do to this fuselage before I forget, and that is we need to add the little rigging points that sit. You may have noticed there's a little hole that's been cut at the forward edge of where the lower wing sits, and that is where we're going to put some little plastic parts. I just grab those. P6 and P7, and there are 2 of each. Now, before we go and cut these out, there's a little trick with these smaller parts. What tends to happen is when the laser goes through, it does melt a little bit because it's going quite slow. It melts a little bit, and you tend to get a little bit of sort of sticky uppy ridgy bits. So I'm actually just going to use the smooth side of the sanding stick and just give it a quick rub over on the flip side, just to make sure it's relatively smooth. It also obviously roughs it up a bit, so when it comes to gluing it together, the glue takes a little better. So, well, that's the theory anyway. So let's do these one at a time because they're tiny things. So take off. That's a P6. I'll just bring that up to the camera so that you can see. There we go, that's your P6, and we're going to fold that like so, so that it forms a structure like that. Is it going to focus? There we go, like so. Whoop. Try again. No. There we go. So we're going to glue that together using just a very tiny bit of glue that should hold it. A tiny little dab, and then just smear it into the areas that are needed. And then just fold that over. You'll notice that the little heads of this part have holes in. Obviously what you're trying to do is get the holes to line up either side. We will be using a rigging tool to push the rigging line through there. So if you do get a bit of glue in there, because of the nature of the glue, it'll get out of the way when we put a rigging tool through, so not an issue. There we go. So we'll now take a P7 out. There we go. And that P7 sits on the inside of that little slot that's cut there. But the easiest way to install it is for us to pop our rigging part through hole, and that's with the obviously the little rigging attachment points pointing outwards. So we're just going to pop that through the hole like so. Needs a bit of encouragement, I have to say. There we go. And then we can slot this over that little end mushroom like so. You can see hopefully there it's been slotted over, and then we'll pull the rigging part out so that it marries up there, and then we can add glue. Now I'm actually going to use a little bit of my rocket super glue on this, but you can use Yoo-hoo, that would be absolutely fine, but this obviously is a bit more solid. If I can get any to come out, there we go. I'll just pop that there, and that will act as a nice anchor for the rigging, which is it's not particularly unusual on this aircraft, but it does have this one point where the two rigging strands come from, so it's quite elegant actually. So I'm going to repeat that on this side, and that will be our fuselage skin finished, so that we can move on to the next stage of the build.